Chapter 4 continued. Max Ernest squinted, trying to make out the features of the boy waving at him. In truth, he was just as surprised as the others. "Don't tell me you don't remember your old comrade in arms," the boy protested when he reached the nut table. He smiled dazedly and removed his monocle. "It's only been a year since our last tea time, Tellety." In French, Tellety means head-to-head, as in head-to-head or other heart-to-heart conversations. In English, it means you like to pepper your speech with pretentious French phrases. "A year and a half," corrected Max Ernest, finally recognizing him. "But only barely. Actually, a year and 8 months. Ah, there, the Max Ernest we all know and love. Always exact, isn't he? Don't make a mistake around him. He'll catch it every time." The boy chuckled. The other 2 boys at the table laughed in apprehensive agreement. The new kid had a particularly old-fashioned way of speaking, but he was so relaxed and self-confident that it didn't seem weird so much as adult and sophisticated. "Aren't you going to introduce me to your chums?" It took a moment for Max Ernest to understand the question, because first of all, he never heard the word chum spoken aloud, only read it in old books about a pair of brothers detectives. As a rule, Max Ernest disliked friction. He didn't understand the point of reading about something that wasn't true. But he made an exception for mysteries because they were like puzzles or riddles, only longer. The Hardy Boy books had been his favorite mysteries when he was younger. Now he prefers Edgar Allan Poe and Sherlock Holmes. And second of all, as we established earlier, Daniel Not Danielle and Glob weren't his chums in the first place. Okay, Daniel Not Danielle, Glob, this is Benjamin Blake," said Max Ernest. "He used to go here." At least it appeared to be Benjamin Blake. When Max Ernest had last seen Benjamin, he'd been several inches shorter and had looked years younger. But it was the way he spoke now that made more than the way he looked to represent the biggest change. The old Benjamin had mumbled his words in such an extent that almost nobody could decipher them. What's more, whenever somebody bothered to figure out what he was saying, it turned out that his ideas were even less intelligible than his words. As an extreme synth, his senses were all entangled with each other, and his thoughts were a confused jumble of color and sound, tastes and smells. If you haven't heard of Cynthia, you might consider consulting the first book in the Secret series. But I warn you, it will still mean confusion, and a confusion of senses, that is. Today, his speech was a sturdy and perfect illusion. He sounded, not to mention looked like a star of an old black and white movie. Most surprising of all was his manner. Once shy and awkward to the point where he nearly couldn't function in normal life, he was now all cheerful insolence and casual suave fare. I could tell you what insolence means. I chose to, but I can't be troubled at the moment. It's far too sunny a day. Hint, the opposite of insolence is anxious and stressed out. For the suave fare, it means know what to do in French. In English, it means the same as tête-à-tête does, i.e. that you have preluded the pretentious French phrase. "I thought you were a different school now," said Max Ernest when he recovered from his initial shock. He and Cass had been told that Benjamin was going to a special school for kids with disabilities. Because of Benjamin's value to the Midnight Sun, they were supposed to be keeping an eye on him for the Trace Society. At one time, the Midnight Sun had believed Benjamin's unique brain chemistry might be the key to unlocking the formula of the secret. but they figured a school like that would keep him safe, so they had pretty much allowed themselves to forget about him. With a flush of guilt, Max Ernest realized they never even checked to make sure Benjamin had enrolled. He could have been anywhere for all Cass and Max Ernest knew. The Midnight Sun had kidnapped Benjamin once before. It was a stroke of luck that he hadn't kidnapped him again. "Oh, but I was at a special school, very special," said Benjamin. "The new Promethean Academy. It was sort of a finishing school. You know, the teacher teach proper social decorum, and so on and so forth. But in my case, you could say it was a starting school as well. I feel they really brought me to life." Max Ernest couldn't disagree, although he wasn't sure that he did prefer the old, non-living Benjamin. "Maybe I sit down." Max Ernest nodded and Benjamin took Cass's seat. It was very likely the first time in the history of the nut table that somebody had asked permission before sitting. Max Ernest tried to think of something to say to the old friend, now stranger, in front of him. "So are you going to enter the painting at the Renaissance Fair Master this year?" Renaissance Master was the name of a student art competition held by the conjoint of the Renaissance Fair. Benjamin Blake had won the year he entered it. "No, I don't paint anymore." "Really?" Max Ernest was surprised. In the past, apart from being the prize-winning artist, Benjamin had loved painting. Painting was almost the only way he could communicate with the outside world. "Oh, art is a childish pursuit, don't you think? Unless you're truly a great artist. I mean, if you're not going to be Michelangelo or Raphael, what's the point? I detest mediocrity." "Yeah, me too," said Max Ernest reflectively. Then he thought about it for a moment. "Except, how do you know if you're going to be great at something if you don't try? Michelangelo didn't know he was going to be Michelangelo until he was Michelangelo." "How about that?" Benjamin smiled witheringly. "So encouraging, so wise. You sound like one of my poor little parents." Max Ernest blushed. He had to admit it did sound something like a parent would say. "Anyways, some people thought you were great." "Sure, compared to most kids, but my dynasty lies elsewhere." Benjamin held his monocle to the light and peered into it for a moment, as if his destiny might lie inside it. Max Ernest noticed that there was two lenses, one on top of the other. That was why the monocle had bulged slightly out of the Benjamin's eye socket. "Now, I have never seen a monocle like that. It's like a visual oxymoron." "I know, because moron means one, but it's got two lenses. Actually, you could say it's a visual oxymoron. You see the contraction in terms, so the visual in sense, but also a visual in the sense that you look through it." "How about that?" "Huh, I never thought about it that way," said Benjamin, quickly bringing it back to his eye. "Does the second lens make it stronger or something?" "Something like that. Now, on to the serious matters. How's our friend Cassandra?" "I'm so concerned about her. She's still in the hospital, I take it." Max Ernest frowned. "How did you know she was in the hospital?" He whispered. He looked over at Danielle and Glob, making it clear that they weren't meant to be included in the conversation. They turned away, but somehow I doubt they stopped listening. "I thought everybody did. I didn't know it was supposed to be a secret." Max Ernest regarded his old new schoolmate with alarm. If an outsider like Benjamin knew about Cass, then anybody might, even the Midnight Sun. Max Ernest wasn't sure what they would do with the information. Kidnap Cass from the hospital? Poison her IV? But he didn't want to wait to find out. His mission was more urgent than ever. "Anyway, don't tell me anyone else. She wouldn't want people to talk about it," he said. And don't worry about her. She'll be okay soon. I hope so. My goodness. What would happen to all the disasters in the world if our dear Cass wasn't around to predict them? Max Ernst nodded his assent. Although his powers of sarcasm detection had improved greatly over the past couple years, if there were any sarcasm in Benjamin's voice, I'm not saying that there was. It was far too subtle for Max Ernst to discern. Lunch ended shortly thereafter. As the reunited friends parted ways, Benjamin coughed and lowered his voice. Max Ernst, old chum, I don't want to embarrass you, but there's a piece of paper stuck to your back. May I? Gravely and politely, Benjamin unpinned the paper and handed it to Max Ernst. Max Ernst groaned. It was a classic schoolyard prank, one played by dozens of times over the years. There were 2 words written on the back. Kick me. Thanks, he said through gritted teeth. Don't mention it. Benjamin gave a little bow and sauntered away. Max Ernst was about to toss the offended paper into the trash when he noticed that there was something written on the backside. It looked like some kind of travel advisory. Warning, El train hors fare changing, bring olives, not no words. The wording was so strange that Max Ernst immediately suspected he was looking at a coded message from the Trace Society. Travel device decrypted when the personal favorite of Pietro's. But what did it mean? Max Ernst could tell at a glance it wasn't a keyword code of any kind or simple alphabet substitution. Or were the call letters of Chicago O'Hare Airport. Was he meant to go there? Why? How? Without giving too much away about his location, I can tell you that Max Ernst was nowhere close to the Chicago O'Hare Airport, and getting there on his own would have been very difficult for someone of his age, to say the least. Presumably, there was an L, short for elevated train in Chicago, that led to the airport. But as far as the fare changing, why should he care? He didn't even know how much the old fare had been. Bring olives, not N-words. Max Ernst figured the key to decoding the message laid in the last sentence. Simply because of the oddness. Olive was the word name that occurred often in the patronymic form, e.g., evil equals olive. Most likely solution, Max Ernst concluded, would be involved in the planetarium, then at least an anagram. Words equals sword. But then what about the N? The N words is usually no in plural, suggesting that the meaning had to be something else. Bring olives, not nuts, not newspapers, not nuclear bombs. Uncharacteristically, Max Ernst gave up and slipped the message into his backpack. Normally, a message from the Trace Society would be a top priority for him, but he would forego all the activity until it was decoded. But this one would have to wait, he decided. There's more pressing matter to attend to. Cass. Also, it is possible that Max Ernst's feelings were a bit hurt. Pietro, of course, loved pranks, but the kick me sign seemed unnecessarily mean. Couldn't the magician have left the message in some other way? I think Max Ernst may have delayed decoding the message as a silent but frankly ineffective means of retaliation. A moment later in the library, Max Ernst wrote an email to Yoji, telling him about the unlikely return of Benjamin Blake, and about how desperate he was to bring Cass back to the present. Get inside Cass's head, Pietro had instructed him. He had to figure out how right away.